welcome in a jam-packed Thursday edition of East Coast Bias right here on the Ringer Gambling Show. And, of course, for our friends on FanDuel TV, the triple threat reunited again after Joe House made his trip down to Augusta, Georgia. And now the NBA postseason in full swing. And we have a whole lot of winners coming your way. Joe House, Raheem Palmer, John Jastremski, as we look back on what we saw in the 2 7-8 play-in games. We got a bunch of serious prices to get to. Let's start here, boys. House, every now and again, I like to toot my own horn. There are plenty that we get wrong. Trust me. I own it. I accept it. I know it. I understand it. However, I'm very proud of the way I handicapped Memphis and Golden State on Tuesday night, because to me, the game took shape really exactly the way I saw it playing out. It was a spirited, competitive, feisty effort from the Memphis Grizzlies, who fell behind super early, late first quarter, early second quarter, hung around, had a big third quarter, but at the end of the day, it's a star-driven league. Mr. Butler and Mr. Curry were not going to miss out on having those 4 or 5 of extra days of rest. So we cashed Memphis plus the points, but as I told you boys the other day on Monday, there's no way in the world Golden State loses this game. Every now and again, House, we get one right.
Yeah, I loved it, JJ, and it was that spirited contest. It is a good matchup for Memphis. They do play Golden State well, and the innovation of their Twin Tower approach, Zach Edey and Triple J, it did give Golden State some trouble. And, going forward, I think a Memphis-Oklahoma City 1-8 matchup. Now, we're getting ahead of ourselves because the 8 seed still needs to be finalized, but I do like the idea, if Ja isn't too hurt with that ankle injury, of Memphis going up against Oklahoma City. That could be kind of a fun series. Dream. I think that Memphis fears no one. They just are their own worst enemy sometimes in terms of, their turnovers, and they get into some defensive lapses. But I was impressed by that Memphis performance, Dream.
I think a lot of that game said a lot about Golden State to me. And I think when you look at Golden State, they have 2 guys that you can truly rely on offensively. That's Steph Curry and that's Jimmy Butler. We know Jimmy Butler had 38 points. Steph Curry had 37 on 9 for 22 shooting. But where's the production from everybody else? If Brandon Podziemski does not shoot well, then the cupboard is pretty bare for this Golden State Warriors team. And, despite the fact that they didn't get much from anybody else, the Warriors still put up 121 points on 125 points per 100 possessions. So this Memphis Grizzlies team truly can't stop a nosebleed. So I'm not expecting them to go very far at all. And it wouldn't surprise me if the Kings or the Mavericks beat this team, because I just don't trust them to stop anybody defensively. And, as good as John Morant is, for whatever reason, he cannot stay healthy. And I think that also played a role in that game as well. If John Morant doesn't get hurt, maybe the Grizzlies are able to pull away with that game.
Interesting, Raheem. You look at the negative for the Golden State Warriors, and I understand. Listen, you look at their box score outside of the big 2 from an offensive perspective, it left a whole lot to be desired. However, we're still talking about 2 major alphas in Steph Curry, and now he has somebody he can rely upon in the half court in Jimmy Butler, who knows a thing or two about winning games in the postseason. And I know we're going to jump back to Atlanta and Orlando. Don't worry, we'll get there in a little bit. But I got to get right into this Golden State-Houston series, because Golden State, despite the fact they're a 7 seed, despite the fact that, hey, they had to play a Tuesday night play-in game that was dicey for them against Memphis, Raheem, we are looking at the Golden State Warriors as a sizable favorite over the Houston Rockets. Do our friends at FanDuel have this line fairly priced, or is this line, in your humble opinion, a little out of whack?
See, this one is tough for me because right now on FanDuel Sportsbook, the Golden State Warriors are minus 188 favorites. That denotes a 65% chance at winning this series. And we know they don't have home court. Now, I think there's 2 ways to look at this. When you're looking at full season numbers, the Rockets should clearly be favorites. And, I have the Rockets as, using full season numbers, I have them as 53% favorites. So I think this number is wrong when you're using full season numbers. But we know the Warriors made a trade for Jimmy Butler. And since then, this Warriors team has been completely different. Whatever their record is, what is it, 24-3 or 24-4, whatever they are, since they traded for Jimmy Butler, they are a completely different team. So if you're using post All-Star break numbers, I can see why you have the Warriors as favorites. And it seems as though, the books are doing that. But I think this number is a little steep. I think the problem is that you look at the Houston Rockets. They struggle to score in the half court. They are 22nd in half court offensive rating. So the thing is, even though these teams might be like evenly matched, you tend to trust Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler to be able to score in crunch time. So I think that's what's making this series very tough. But I think Amen Thompson and Dillon Brooks, they're going to be able to, play some terrific defense on this team. And I think ultimately this is a very long series.
Yeah, I totally agree, JJ. To me, the price of this series is basically a fair price if you say there's 4.5 minutes left in this basketball game and the score is around even. One team's up a little. It's basically the
That's what we saw
time.
Tuesday night. The game against Memphis Tuesday night. That's advantage Golden State, to your point.
That's it. So if you want to tell me that line is what would emanate from a last 5 minutes of the game when we're in a clutch time moment where both teams are inside of 5 points, I say, okay, you know what? Fair enough. I certainly trust Golden State inside the half court framework and in those clutch moments more than I trust Houston. But over the balance of a series, to Dream's point, I had to go ahead and grab a little bit of Houston. I didn't make a huge investment in it, but I think the price is out of whack because of the great unknowns with this Houston youth. And a little bit, and I'll just confess it right now, of my investment in Houston is an investment in Ime, because I think that Ime, with this group of young kids, will show up ready to take on this Golden State team. And I lost a little confidence, I'm saying it out loud, in the way that Golden State ran their lineups against Memphis. They have to get that man Kuminga on the floor. I don't know what he did to Steve Kerr or whoever on that staff. That man is a live body. He can rebound. They need everybody available to go up against what Houston is. It's going to be wave after wave of uber athletic, uber tough guys that are not going to back down. Dillon Brooks trying to get in Steph Curry's head. Dillon Brooks getting in stare downs with Draymond. It's going to be physical. So Golden State can't afford to leave any of their live bodies on the bench, JJ. So to me, I had to get a little piece of Houston. But I understand, based on the way the Dream set it up, why the price is what it is.
So, guys, my take on this series is this. I have a lot of respect for Udoka. I think he's a tremendous head coach. We saw that with the Celtics. He's done a wonderful job with the Rockets. And there are a lot of tough players on that Houston team. Not a ton of postseason experience, though, once you take Van Fleet out of the equation. I know Dillon Brooks played his fair share of playoff games if you go back to his days with the Memphis Grizzlies. But a lot of the big players in this series, Raheem, this is their first taste at being in postseason play. And I think, to your point, this will be a very fun series. I think it will be a lengthy series. I'm not going to be surprised if it goes 6 or 7 games. I know it's a different feel, Raheem, to what we saw 2 years ago when the Warriors were significant favorites in Sacramento. You remember they ended up having to go and win a 7th game in Sacramento. Sacramento played no defense. They were a team that was tremendous offensively. It's a different vibe from that standpoint. But ultimately, I just can't see Curry and Butler losing to a team that has just too much inexperience going into this thing. So I don't want to necessarily lay 188, but I'll take it with something else I like and parlay it, and we'll get to that a little bit later on when we give out some picks. At the end of the day, guys, Raheem, I can't pick against Golden State in this series. I'm taking them to win in 6.
You know what I'm going to say? I think the Rockets will have a lead in this series at some point.
I don't think that's crazy.
They may not win this series, but at some point they're going to have a lead in this series, whether it's 2-1, whether it's 1-0, whether it's 3-2. I think the Warriors are going to have their backs against the wall in this series. And I think this is not going to be an easy series at all. And, House hit the nail on the head. They need Jonathan Kuminga for this series because he is one of their most athletic players. And the Warriors they've struggled with athleticism. I mean, if you go back to that April 6th game in which the Warriors were at home and they closed 5.5-point favorites and the Rockets went outright, they were able to hold Steph Curry to 3 points on 1 of 10 shooting. And I think a big factor in this series is how are they going to officiate this series? Because if they let Amin Thompson and Dylan Brooks hold and grab and pull Steph Curry, then, they have a real chance of winning this series. But I think you're going to see games throughout this series where Jimmy Butler's going to the line 15, 20 times. Steph Curry, you can't breathe on him. So I think there's going to be plenty of games like that. I think ultimately this is a very long series. And I think probably Curry and Jimmy Butler pulled it out in the end. But I think the positive expected value play is on the Rockets. I think House nailed it.
Fair enough. House, if there's a way to play this series other than getting involved with either Golden State or Houston, is there a way you'd like to do it? I don't know what your best feel for Rockets and Warriors necessarily would be.
I don't want to tie up too much money on over 5.5. It's minus 215, even though I think that's correct. I'm going to go ahead and grab plus money odds on the Warriors to win 4-2 and the Warriors to win 4-3. It's plus 250 for the Warriors to win 4-2, plus 630 to win 4-3. And Dream just mentioned one of the most important points, JJ. The NBA has in front of it the possibility of the LA Lakers and or the Golden State Warriors advancing to the Western Conference Finals. Drawing. That's right. So if Golden State gets through this series and the Lakers handle their business against the Minnesota Timberwolves, that's an awesome series. You're going to have one of these teams in the Western Conference Finals, and that is the ratings gold that the league is looking for. I expect not a conspiracy that I'm advancing, but I expect in terms of style of refereeing that the established superstars will get the calls to which they've become accustomed, JJ.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up the Lakers and that juicy series coming up with the Minnesota Timberwolves. There's a certain team that I think is pretty live in that series. I don't know if they have enough. Can they solve the Luka Doncic problem? We'll dive into the Lakers and the T-Wolves. And we'll also talk about how you might have missed the boat on the best potential series prize with the Los Angeles Clippers and the Denver Nuggets. We got some juicy first-round series to break down a handicap. And, yeah, we'll get to that just crummy, rotten, vile first playing game I had to watch between the Atlanta Hawks and the Orlando Magic.
I loved it.
Oh, Raheem, we'll get to that. I got some thoughts. Hi to women and children. East Coast Bias Boys. We're coming right back. All right, welcome back. The Western Conference is really where it's at this postseason as far as the first round is concerned. And just looking at these potential matchups, yeah, the Memphis, Sacramento, Dallas against OKC, not going to be the most exhilarating series that you can find, but we just broke down all of the reasons why Houston and Golden State has a chance to be a ton of fun. And these next two series, to me, are just absolutely fantastic, boys, where you have the Lakers and Luka and LeBron and the way they've performed in the second half, taking on a Timberwolves team that was in the Western Conference Finals a year ago, Anthony Edwards and everything he brings to the table. Love that. And then you have the Denver Nuggets with the best player in the world, Mr. Jokic, taking on a Clipper team that's been as good as anybody over the last 2 months of the year. Let's start here, guys. Denver and the Clippers. House, we talked about what the price was on Monday when we did this show and how the price for Denver and the Clippers had moved to a point where you were seeing serious plus money on the Clippers. It was at Pick'em on Monday. Now we're looking at minus 118, minus 120 on the FanDuel Sportsbook for the Clippers to go and win this series. For anybody who's jumping in now, House, this is my question. I like the Clippers in this series. I think we all like the Clippers in this series. But for anybody out there who maybe wasn't listening, they weren't dialed in on throwing in series prices yet, did they miss the boat And can they still hop on the Clippers at minus 118? I know it's not the best number, but because I like them to win the series, my answer is going to be yes.
My answer, JJ, is not going to be able to do it. I would not recommend anyone go get on the Clippers at this price. Now is the time you get in on Denver. You're not going to get the 1A, 1B. He's definitely the best player in the world, the Joker, and he's the 1A or 1B in these MVP votes that we're going to see come out. The Joker at even money in a first round series where his cast is mostly healthy, and he's got four guys. There's four guys that were on the title winner from a handful of years ago. Just on principle, at that price, I think Denver is a play. Now, when you go inside the matchups, it's very rich. For sure, it will be exciting to see Aaron Gordon guarding Kawhi Leonard. I think that's a good matchup. The thing about Denver defensively, which is super underwhelming, they can't slow down slow guards. Well, I mean, they can't slow down fast guards. Well, the Clippers don't have any fast guards. They have slow guards. And so now you are in the realm where the Clippers, who have been absolutely dominant over the last 20 games and even going back further, but especially top ratings on both offense and defense over the last 15 to 20 games. So have earned this spot to where the market is showing them as the favorite here. But it's 3-point shooting variance. And if that's the case, I'll take the price at even money with the team that has the best player in the world. That's the simple handicap for me, JJ.
I understand that. Dream, for anybody out there, Clippers still, you think the play to go and win this series?
You cannot bet the Clippers at this price. And you're looking at the Clippers right now at minus 118. That denotes a 54% chance of winning. And you could have gotten this number at plus 160. You could have gotten this number at plus 130, 140, plus 125. You cannot bet this number at this price. I think you would be doing a complete disservice to yourself. House broke down all of the reasons why. I think if you're going to play it, if you're going to play, the Clippers, maybe you lay 1.5 or something like that, but you can't play this number. I think you're just totally getting the worst of it.
I have a suggestion, Raheem, for everybody out there. We've seen in playoff past, superstars really show up right out of the gate with monstrous performances. Is it going to shock anybody if you go see Jokic get a triple-double or some 40, 50-point game with 20 boards, 10 assists, something out of the ordinary? Denver wins game one, and then they on FanDuel House have these wonderful bets where you can go game one series. I love them. I feel like I've done very well with these over the last few years. This is one I'm thinking about, guys. If you don't want to lay minus 118, but you still think the Clippers are the better team and they're going to find a way to win the series, House, how about taking Denver to win game one, Clippers to win the series, and get it at 3-1? What do we think?
That actually kind of has my attention. I will confess, because that does. I already have a ticket on the Clippers at the preferred price at like plus 135 or something. Jumped into that market as quickly as I could, but not as fast as all the sharp cats out there grabbing those plus 160s. But still, yet having a little bit of exposure to the Clippers is fine, just not at minus 118. So it is a kind of arbitrage is probably overstating it, but I do like the idea of Denver. This is such a good chess match. The problem is we don't know anything about the coaching situation in Denver. I know all that I need to know about Ty Lue and his staff. So it should be a chess match, but what can Denver bring to the table that is going to help them play better defense? I don't know the answer. I do like them in altitude, handling their business in game one, and then the series sort of opens up from there. Certainly not going to be surprised if the Clippers win. And then, if you want to do Clippers game one and Clippers series, that's 2-1. You can have another small investment in that as well. But that 3-1, I like what you're doing there, JJ.
So, Dream, go ahead. But
I don't really like to split hairs like that. I think you're putting yourself in a tough position. You like the Clippers to win the series, and they're underdogs in game one. Why not just take the Clippers?
Well, you get a split. I mean, I understand the point, but I'm just saying if you don't want to go and lay minus 118, you want to maybe see a direct correlation. I get it. It's probably not the smartest direct correlation because you're kind of contradicting yourself in a way, Raheem. But if you're saying, hey, the Clippers are going to go and get one of the first two, you feel like Denver's going to win game one, maybe the Clippers respond. Hey, if you're feeling it, to me, it's a field play, and it's something I'm seriously considering because I like the Clippers.
I think there's a better bet on the board.
What's that?
So FanDuel has, these prices on most points, most rebounds. I think Jokic is going to outscore everybody. He's minus 155.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet against that. Who's the guy that gets in his way? Kawhi Leonard? James Harden?
Well, I think Kawhi Leonard is plus 350. James Harden is plus 360. And, House mentioned this earlier. Aaron Gordon's a pretty good matchup on Kawhi Leonard. I don't know if there's too many good matchups for Kawhi Leonard, but if you're going to pick somebody throughout the course of the league to guard Kawhi Leonard, it's probably Aaron Gordon. Maybe some of those wings over there in Boston, but that's a guy that you would want on him. And I think the Clippers aren't going to have an answer for Nikola Jokic. Maybe they'll force other guys to shoot, but I think ultimately he's going to get his. So I think you could look at Jokic most points for the series. I think you could also look at him probably most assists. He's he's plus 110. Harden is the favorite, but depending on how they choose to guard him, I think other guys might have to hit shots. Christian Braun, Julian Strother, all of these other role guys. So I think Jokic is going to lead in many of these statistical categories. So I think you can capitalize on that.
House, what's the path for Denver winning this series other than the obvious Jokic being Jokic? How does Denver win this series against the Clippers?
They catch the Clippers a little bit cold from three. Norm Powell gets just a little bit cold, and the inside-outside game, Zubac doesn't get off in terms of defensively. Zubac is neutralized because of what Joker does. The Joker pulls them all the way out. There is a pathway for Denver. They are physical enough. They have to figure out a way. First of all four of those guys have to play 46 of 48 minutes. That's the absolute mandatory for every one of these Denver games. Their top guys have to play max minutes. You have to minimize how much Russell Westbrook we see out there. He can't be on the floor in the fourth quarter. You could put him on for spot minutes, in the second and third. That's fine. But the path to me is Denver with its superior offense. They have to win with offense, and that is the advantage that they possess, and that's the path.
Gents, there's another LA team that gets a little bit more attention than the Los Angeles Clippers, getting ready for another marquee, juicy matchup. And Dream, when you came on the pod Monday, you were rather convinced that the Lakers, because of the LeBron and the Luka factor, are just going to be too much for the Minnesota Timberwolves to deal with here in a best-of-7 series. And I think it's fair to say, Raheem, the market tends to agree with you because this line for Lakers and Timberwolves, which was in a more manageable, small favorite position just a few days ago, seems like it's gotten a little bit more popular over the last few days. So it's like the market agrees with my guy, Raheem.
All right. So when it comes to this series, I think this series is very, very similar to what you're seeing in Warriors versus Rockets, where I don't think the number is truly capturing the true disparity between these teams. I do think the Lakers are the better team. I do think they have the best players in the series with LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Austin Reeves. And I do think they're going to win this series, but I think you're paying a Lakers tax here. And I think this number is too high. But ultimately, the Wolves, they have a Rudy Gobert problem. They have a Luka Doncic problem. Luka Doncic is going to tear this team to shreds. And I think ultimately they're going to win this series, but I think this is going to be a very long series. When I look at my model, I have these teams very close to one another. And I think this is the parity era. I think you're seeing, look, we saw the Western Conference. Seeds 2 through 8 were separated by a game or two. So how can we have such big spreads between these two teams? So I think this is a long series. My best bet for this series is Lakers-Wolves over 5.5 games.
Love it.
I think, the Lakers win this series, but I'm not willing to bet on it at that price. I'm going to bet on this to be a long series. I think, the Wolves should be able to win 2 games, but ultimately the Lakers pull it out.
So that's a great handicap because this is one of the least expensive prices for an over in a series total games play. The number is over 5.5. Dream said it's only minus 154. If you look at some of these other series that you have to lay nearly minus 200, minus 190 in some of these series where we're forecasting they're going to go a bit. Indiana, Milwaukee fits that bill. Denver and the Clippers, I think, is expensive. But that minus 154 is a much better price than messing around with the Lakers at minus 196 right now. That's kind of crazy. And I keep, as we're in the lab doing the work, JJ, there is some really compelling arguments being made about the lineups that Minnesota can bring to bear. The lesson that they may have learned watching the Boston Celtics against the Dallas Mavericks in the NBA Finals last year, and the way that the Celtics were able to neutralize the combination of Luka plus the bigs that Dallas possessed. This LA Lakers team does not possess the bigs that can crash, the bigs that will catch and dunk, the bigs that, set up a pick and roll that really did in the series that the Mavericks took care of Minnesota. That was really the difference ultimately. It was the combination. Gafford and Lively combined for 19 points per game in that series. Luka doesn't have that. So it does seem like the bodies that Minnesota brings to bear, and it's why I agree with Dream. This one is very hard to handicap, and why a series total is the correct way to go. But I don't think it's crazy to get a tiny bit of Minnesota in this one.
I don't as well. I think Minnesota's absolutely live in the series. I'm going to take them plus 1.5 games. I'm going to sprinkle the plus 164. Now, maybe this is me rooting against LeBron and Luka, and maybe I'm getting a little bit warped with this particular handicap. But I see a guy like Anthony Edwards on the floor. We know what he's capable of doing. If there's hesitancy for me, though, House, it's a simple pause. Because Julius Randle, to me, is going to be heavily counted on in this particular series. And I was not particularly fond of the comments that Mr. Randle made just 48 hours ago, talking about this series, saying it's the first time I'm basically playing in some big spotlight series. I go, you kidding me, dude? You just played at Madison Square Garden for the Knicks in the postseason over a couple of years, and you're going to now just say, oh, this is the first time I got a chance? Give me a break. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. But we know what his MO, Raheem, is in these postseason games. He came up incredibly small in the Atlanta series. He came up incredibly small against Miami a couple of years ago. That's my fear factor with Minnesota. I love their toughness. I love the way they can shuffle guys in and out. I think there'll be a pain in the neck for the Lakers to handle, but they need Randle to play well, and I don't know if he's up to the challenge, Dream. That scares me.
He's kind of the least of my worries. I think my worry is Rudy Gobert. I think, unlike New York, Julius Randle doesn't have to be the guy. And if Julius Randle was playing poorly, you just put Naz Reid in. So I just think he has to just play his role. I'm just worried about if Rudy Gobert can stay on the floor. That's what I'm worried about. And then I'm just also just worried about if the Wolves can match score with this Lakers team. I just think the combination of LeBron, Luka, and Austin Reeves is probably should be a future All-Star. That's how good he is. And I just think having those three guys, one of them on the floor every time, that's tough to beat.
House, when it comes to Gobert, do you like him on the floor in this series having a big role? Or do you see the lack of Lakers size and their ability to go small, to Raheem's point, as something that could be incredibly problematic? You go back to when the Warriors used to play the Jazz and Rudy Gobert was on the floor. My goodness, he looked like a fish out of water. Do you think we could potentially see that in this series?
Maybe in game one, but Chris Finch ain't messing around. I mean, if it looks like the Lakers are able to hunt Gobert and put him into those mismatches that, and JJ has been around for a long time. He's been watching. He knows exactly how to leverage that advantage into their scheme. Gobert will just sit. And here's the thing. Minnesota is, to me, still fine. It's fine if Rudy Gobert doesn't play big minutes in this series. They're still bigger. They're still more physical. They're still deeper. They just only have one Anthony Edwards while the Lakers have Luka and LeBron. So that's the thing. But I do really look forward to seeing Anthony Edwards back on this stage and maybe making his bid as the next NBA alpha. That's part of what makes this handicap so wonderful as well.
Absolutely love it. We'll have best bets coming up a little bit later on, but we will shift our attention to the Eastern Conference, where you had the Orlando Magic take down the Atlanta Hawks. You know what your gift is for winning the play-in? A best-of-7 series with the Boston Celtics. Good luck with that, Orlando Magic. We got other series that maybe a little bit more competitive. Knicks and the Pistons, the Pacers and the Bucks. We'll break it all down. We'll shift to the Eastern Conference right after this. Gentlemen, let's get to the Eastern Conference. Not nearly as much sizzle, but money-making opportunities absolutely present themselves. Now, let's start here. Orlando got a big game out of Cole Anthony. They go and take down Atlanta. They end up getting the Celtics. We know how tough they can be defensively. We know how offensively challenged they are. Forget about them winning the series. Can Orlando get a game? What's the ceiling for Orlando in this series if everything goes right?
One game. I mean, it would be a real catastrophe for Boston to mess around and lose 2 games to this offensively challenged Orlando team. I have a lot of respect for Orlando. I'm disappointed that they didn't fulfill the promise of this most recently concluded regular season. I had a lot of investment in them, both to win the Southeast Division. It came right down to the wire, for Christ's sakes, between them and Atlanta. And also, they were nowhere near their win total. They did not, because of injury, get themselves up into that upper echelon. But they don't have any chance at all against this Boston team. One game, sure, Boston falls asleep. They don't shoot well from 3. The prices that are out there. If you want to play Boston to win this series 4-1, it's plus 168. Just to say I have something on this series, that would be my preferred way of playing it.
It's crazy because the Magic have played the Celtics team really, really tough. You look at the last 9 games between these two teams, the Magic are 6-3 outright. The problem is the Magic can't shoot. Like, none of those guys can shoot. I mean, look, I was on the Magic big against the Atlanta Hawks, and it was pretty sweat-free. I mean, they scored 120 points, but they were 11 of 39 from behind the arc, 28%. And we know the Boston Celtics, they can get it up from 3, and they are going to be able to score from behind the arc. You're going to see games in which the Celtics will probably outscore the Magic from 3 by 20, 30, 40 points because this team can't shoot. But, they've always played this team tough. It's unfortunate that Jalen Suggs is not available for this series, because if he was, I think I would find myself taking Magic plus 2.5 games at plus 310. But, he's a big component in what the Magic do well. Right now, it's really just Paolo and Franz. And, Franz is just not shooting the ball well. So I do think the Magic could get one game. I think, they're 14.5 point underdogs. I expect them to cover some of these numbers. I really do, just on defense and just toughness. But this is not really a series that I truly want to get involved with.
Absolutely outrageous spreads. And I'm glad that you brought up, Raheem, Orlando's success against Boston, not only in this regular season, but the last couple of years. This regular season, I almost would take it with a grain of salt, because if you look at a lot of those matchups, Tatum didn't play in a couple of games. Franz Wagner didn't play in a couple of games. I think Banchero missed a game. So you're not getting the true iteration of what the Celtics and the Magic may be. Longer period of time, that physicality has gotten to Boston. But again, math problem, big-time math problem. It sounds like me in 11th grade pre-calc. I always had math problems, never my strong suit. And I think that'll be a problem for Orlando, and I'd say Max.
You know one thing, this Celtics team, they mess around.
They do, and that's why, Raheem, if you're gonna see them mess around, I think it's more likely it happens at home, 1 or 2.
Yeah, I mean, look at last year against the Miami Heat. No Jimmy Butler. Game 2, they lose outright. So, if you got some beer money laying around, or you just bored and you just want to take $10, $20, $50, $100 and throw it on the Magic money line for games 1 and 2 to try to get a big payout, it probably wouldn't be a bad bet.
Best of luck on that. I understand your point.
Yeah.
It will not be an enjoyable ride, I think.
It's a good lottery ticket. That's all I'm saying. It's a good lottery ticket.
I've seen worse lottery tickets. That's for sure. I've definitely seen worse in my life. All right, gentlemen. Let's get to the Knicks and the Pistons. I gave this out the other day, -1.5 games for the series. We talk about regular season success. Cade Cunningham has had his way with the New York Knicks defense all year. Now, Detroit, as fun a story as they have been in the regular season, this is a team with a whole lot of inexperience, unless you were talking about the likes of Tim Hardaway Jr. and Tobias Harris. And despite House, Detroit being a very tough-minded, physical team, and I think they're going to try to make that their calling card in this series because we saw the Knicks and the Pistons match up a week ago. Knicks rested a couple of guys, but you could tell Detroit was trying to get chippy. They were trying to get up in their grill. They were trying to make that the identity of what these games are going to be. I just don't see how Cade Cunningham has enough around him in this series to go and pull it off. I just don't. And if you tell me that Tobias Harris and Tim Hardaway Jr. are going to send my Knicks home, I'm going to tip my cap and call them my daddy. I don't see it. I don't see this series getting to a 7th game. I am comfortable playing the Knicks in 5, Knicks in 6. They cannot lose this series under any set of circumstances. And oh, by the way, House, Bickerstaff, as good a job as he's done with Detroit all year. He was the coach of that Cleveland team 2 years ago. Knicks beat him in 5. I'll take the Knicks in 6.
I don't have any basis to try and argue you out of that position, JJ. And one additional consideration, remember, we talked about this in the context of the Western Conference playoff series and how there is a kind of incentive for the league to see the Lakers and the Warriors advance. Well, if Boston and the New York Knicks advance through this first round there, we're going to have the Knicks and the Celtics playing in the second round of these NBA playoffs, and boy, is that a delight. So I'm in the mode where I don't think a lot of the physicality that referee crews will permit in the regular season, I just don't think the league will countenance that kind of nonsense. Again, not a conspiracy theory, just the Knicks getting the benefit of the whistle that they've kind of earned. The players, Brunson et al., they've earned it. And so Knicks 4-2, no reason for me to argue against that, JJ.
Yeah, I'm struggling with this series for, multiple reasons. And I know I've said this for a lot of them, but I mean, obviously the Pistons won the season series 3-1. But when you look at the starters' minutes, the Knicks starters have dominated the Pistons starters. And I think that's where the edge lies. But when I look from a pure power rating perspective, I think the market is similar to the Lakers series, similar to the Warriors series. They're making you pay a tax to lay the Knicks.
Oh, Raheem, this is a monstrous tax. You're almost laying 4-1 in this series, for goodness sakes.
I just don't buy that the Knicks are that much better than the Pistons. I just don't. I mean, I know the starters' minutes have dominated the Pistons starters, but I just don't think that they're that much better. I truly don't. So I can't lay the series price. I think Cade Cunningham has the potential to be the best player in this series. In 4 games against the Knicks, he's averaged almost 31 points, 8.3 assists on 56% shooting. So I think he has a chance to dominate this series, especially against a Knicks team, which really isn't that good defensively. I mean, at all. So if you're looking at, opponents would finish, 10th in offensive rating, they're only 22nd in defensive efficiency. So I think there's going to be games throughout this series where, the Knicks are going to struggle to put this team away. But I just don't want to lay an inflated number on the Knicks. I think they ultimately win this series. I think this is probably a long series. I'm probably going to take the Pistons in game 1, to be honest with you. What I saw from Jalen Brunson over the last week since he's come back, he hasn't been the same guy at all. Yeah, I mean, so it's just like I wonder if there's some rust there. I also think the Pistons have a guy in Sora Thompson who can make him work. So I like the Pistons in game 1 at, +7. I think they keep it close in game 1, and then I'm going to see what happens from there.
I understand you taking Detroit plus those points in game 1. 2 keys to this series, though, guys. House, OG Anunoby is going to have to play a big defensive role. And he didn't play the last time Detroit matched up with the New York Knicks. You're going to see a lot, I think, of Anunoby on Cade Cunningham in these particular games. And Detroit is going to leave Josh Hart wide open. Josh Hart has not shot the ball as well as he has shot the ball in years past. Now, these guys get up for the postseason. Playoff Brunson is a real thing. Raheem, I think him playing this last week of the regular season was key to kind of knock off some of that rust. House, remember I said this. Josh Hart's going to have to hit a big shot or two if the Knicks are going to win this series with ease.
Well, both of you guys have spoken into existence one of the bets that I think is the way I'm going to play this, which is Cade Cunningham series most total points at even money is plus 100. The Jalen Brunson rust factor, he's at plus 120. I want nothing to do with Jalen Brunson as the leading scorer for this team. The player on the Knicks that I would be interested in is honestly Karl Anthony Towns at plus 550. So I will probably play a decent size number on Cade, like what I would allocate to a series price to Cade as most total points, and then a tiny bit on Karl Anthony Towns.
Boys, when we come back, there's one more series in the Eastern Conference we got to get to. It's a Milwaukee team that isn't going to have Dame Lillard. Are they live? They're going to take down the Indiana Pacers? We'll let the boys weigh in right after this. Series, guys, to get to. Indiana, they were in the Eastern Conference Finals a year ago. They matched up with this Milwaukee team a year ago. They took them out. They knocked them out. They ended up finding their way past the New York Knicks as well. Raheem, Milwaukee, based upon what they did at the end of the regular season, did they find something here that you think is advantageous for them in this series against the Pacers?
I think they have. I really like. Look, Doc Rivers gets a ton of criticism, but when the chips are down and he has to find answers, he's able to find answers with the undermanned roster. And we know Damian Lillard, he's out with that blood clot. But I like the lineup where he has Giannis, Porter, Green, Trent, and Portis. And I think Kevin Porter Jr. is playing some of the best basketball of his career right now. And he's been creating for this team. And then Giannis is just absolutely unstoppable. I just don't think the Pacers have anything for him. Averaging 30 points, almost 13 rebounds, almost 8 assists, almost 2 blocks, and almost 2 steals in 4 games against Indiana this year. So I think they're live to win this series. I don't think that Pacers offense is what it was, last season. They were like complete world beaters. Now they're just, a top 10 offense. So I think the Bucks can be very competitive in this series and keep this series close. So I may find myself on the Bucks in game 1.
Yeah, JJ, this is my favorite series of the entire playoff slate, both conferences.
Wow, your favorite one from a watchability standpoint or a betting standpoint?
Just betting. I don't know if I can watch very much of it, but we have to remind everybody, the Greek Freak has played 3 playoff games in 2 seasons. That man is finally arriving to the playoffs healthy. And the other reminder is that this Milwaukee team, it is a marathon, not a sprint. And what they have found over these last 20 games, most importantly in terms of a defensive identity, yes, they can score the ball. Yes, they have shooters, but let me quick aside. This may very well be the best shooting team, the best 3-point shooting team that Giannis has ever played on. It's possible. Taurean Prince, 44% from 3 this season. But look, the defensive identity is the thing, and they found it over this last bit of the season. And I think that the combination of what Giannis, the unstoppability of Giannis, plus Bobby Portis was out with on a suspension, so he's a new entrant. Like, this version of the Bucks hasn't really existed this season, and Dame being out, I think they're adapting. They're showing an adaptability, and I don't think it's honestly that big of a miss. This price on this series reflects Dame Lillard not playing, but dude, plus 180, I'm on it. The Bucks 4-2 plus 540, I'm on it. Bucks 4-3 plus 680, I'm on it. Give me the Bucks every which way. It's freak time, baby.
And I don't think, House, it will be a short series. I'm going to be very surprised if that's the case, because Indiana still can rev it up, especially in their home building, where they're going to have one of those games where they're making every single shot, and they're getting 8-9 deep contributions, and they're winning going away. And then you're also going to have Giannis go and win a game or 2 by himself. So to me, if you like whoever you like in this series, you can find some value in 6 and in 7 games. But you are sold, House, in the way they're able to go and defend in this series. That's my hesitation, because all year I've seen Milwaukee just putrid from the defensive standpoint. That's why I'm not getting in minus 215 on Indiana. I think it's too rich a price. I'm not going against Giannis. We get all that value there. However, it's a stay. I'm playing a game-to-game. To me, it's a game-to-game series. So I'm not as all in on this one as I thought I'd be, Raheem. I got some hesitation.
Yeah, I agree with going game to game. I think this is a series to where, look, we know there's no Damian Lillard. So, maybe the Bucks get off to a hot start and they might run out of answers. I think that's something that could happen when you're just undermanned. So I do think this is a game to game series, but I think we're in the parity era. And I truly believe that we're going to see a ton of long series in this first round. Like, I don't think it's going to be, outside of the, maybe the one seeds, Oklahoma City, Cleveland. I don't think we're going to see a lot of short series. I think a lot of these teams are very evenly matched.
Interesting. And last year, if I'm not mistaken, House, we did not get a lot of long series in the first round. I feel like the Knicks-Sixers series and the Orlando-Cleveland series gave us some length. Other than that, it felt like a lot of short series. So I hope Raheem's right on that.
You and me both, and it's why my favorite bets in this series are the Bucks ultimately prevailing in 6 or 7, and both of those prices are juicy.
When we come back, we will wrap up this loaded edition of East Coast Bias, where the NBA has taken center stage. We've broke down every single one of these series. We give you leans on all of these series, but now we got to come back to the well. Best bet time. I don't know if the guys are going series, games. We'll have to see. That's coming up. All right, boys. Best bet time. House, I'll start with you. The floor is yours.
JJ, I just made the case for the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm looking at them in game 1, getting 5.5 points on the road at Indiana Pacers. Has anybody watched Milwaukee, Indiana? Milwaukee is a tremendous matchup. Give me the 5.5 points. And while we're at it, why don't we just grab the money line? Plus 190 in game 1 for the Milwaukee Bucks. Let the freak go do freaky things. That's how we're going to get down this week. That's a best bet, JJ.
Raheem, what do we got?
I'm going to go with Lakers Wolves over 5.5 games. That's one of my favorite bets. I gave it out before. I'm going to give it out again. I'm also going to go with the Houston Rockets on the money line. I'm going to wait till around game time, see if I can get the best price I can get. But I think the Rockets win game 1 and shock everybody.
My best bet, parlay, series price edition. New York Knicks, they are not going to see a 7th game against the Detroit Pistons. No way, no how. If you don't want to lay 168, let's get creative. Let's take the Golden State Warriors. Raheem, you can get game 1. It's all yours. Take it away. Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler are not losing that series. Knicks minus 1.5 games. Parlay it with the Golden State series price right around plus 150. That's how we send you home a winner for Raheem Palmer, Joe House, John Jastremski. We'll be back Monday. We might even have something special cooking over the weekend with some game 1 spread picks on the podcast feed. Check that out. We'll see you next week.